For decades, Moscow was seen as untouchable, the heart of Russia, protected by layers of air defenses, intelligence networks, and the image of absolute control projected by Vladimir Putin. War could happen far from the capital, in border regions, in distant cities, but never here. That belief was not just military doctrine, it was psychological armor. And then it cracked. When reports began to surface that Ukraine had successfully struck targets in or near Moscow, the shock was immediate and global. This was not just another battlefield update. This was history bending. The idea that a nation fighting for survival could reach into the core of a nuclear superpower changed the narrative overnight. Moscow, once portrayed as immune, suddenly looked vulnerable. And vulnerability is dangerous when power is built on fear and control. For the Russian public, the strikes carried a message louder than any explosion. The war was no longer distant. It was no longer something happening on television screens or in state-controlled briefings. It was real, and it was close. Air raid sirens, emergency restrictions, flight disruptions, and visible security escalations shattered the illusion of normalcy. Even if the physical damage was limited, the psychological impact was massive. Fear does not require destruction, it only requires doubt. For Vladimir Putin, this moment represented a crisis far deeper than a military setback. His authority has long been rooted in the promise of stability. Since rising to power, he cultivated the image of a leader who restored order after the chaos of the 1990s. Under his rule, Russia was supposed to be strong, respected, and secure. Moscow being targeted directly challenges that foundational promise. If the capital can be reached, then what else is no longer guaranteed? Ukraine's ability to strike Moscow did not happen by accident. It was the result of adaptation, innovation, and relentless pressure under extreme circumstances. Outgunned in many conventional ways, Ukraine invested heavily in asymmetric tactics, long-range drones, intelligence coordination, and precision targeting. Each strike was not just about damage, but about signaling. It told Russia and the world that Ukraine was not merely defending itself, but reshaping the battlefield. These strikes also revealed cracks in Russia's much-vaunted air defense systems. For years, Russian military technology was marketed as among the best in the world. Systems like Pantsir and S-400 were presented as nearly impenetrable shields, yet repeated drone incursions raised uncomfortable questions. Were these systems overstated? Were they overstretched? Or was corruption, long rumored within Russian defense structures, finally becoming visible in real time? Inside the Kremlin, pressure mounted quickly. Every successful Ukrainian strike forced hard decisions. Tightening security in Moscow meant diverting resources from the front lines. Ignoring the strikes risked public panic. Overreacting risked appearing weak. This is the paradox of authoritarian power. Strength must be constantly displayed because any sign of hesitation invites doubt. Russian state media initially downplayed the attacks, framing them as minor incidents or provocations. But in the age of smartphones and social media, controlling the narrative became increasingly difficult. Videos circulated online showing smoke, explosions, and emergency responses. Even when details were blurred, the message was clear. Something was wrong. The Russian elite felt it too. Oligarchs, officials, and power brokers who had long supported the war began to quietly reassess. Many of them had accepted economic sanctions and international isolation in exchange for internal stability. Moscow being threatened upset that calculation. Stability was the unspoken contract, and now it looked fragile. For ordinary Russians, reactions varied. Some responded with anger toward Ukraine and the West, exactly as Kremlin propaganda intended. Others responded with fear and exhaustion. A growing number began asking questions they had avoided for years. Why was this war happening? Why was Russia, supposedly stronger than ever, unable to protect its own capital? And most dangerous of all for the regime, who was paying the real price. Meanwhile, Ukraine understood the stakes perfectly. Striking Moscow was not about revenge, it was about leverage. Every attack forced Russia to confront the cost of continuing the war. It reminded the Kremlin that Ukraine was not running out of options, and that escalation carried risks on both sides. By bringing the war closer to Russia's political and symbolic center, Ukraine shifted the psychological balance. International reactions were cautious but intense. Western allies publicly reiterated their desire to avoid escalation, while privately acknowledging the strategic brilliance of Ukraine's actions. Moscow, being vulnerable, changed diplomatic calculations. It weakened Russia's bargaining position and strengthened Ukraine's argument that it was capable of defending itself with sophistication and restraint. At the same time, fears of escalation grew. Russia is a nuclear power, and any threat to its core territory raises alarms. Would Putin respond with harsher tactics? Would he expand the war? Or would internal pressure force a change in strategy? These questions loomed heavily over global capitals. Putin himself appeared increasingly isolated. Public appearances became more controlled. Security around him tightened visibly. His speeches grew more defiant, but also more defensive. He blamed the West, NATO, and intelligence agencies, reinforcing the narrative of Russia under siege. Yet behind closed doors, reports suggested frustration and anger, not just at Ukraine, but at his own system. The strikes exposed deeper systemic issues within Russia's military and intelligence services. Years of centralized control had discouraged honest reporting. Officers were rewarded for telling superiors what they wanted to hear, not what they needed to know. As a result, weaknesses went unaddressed until they exploded into public view. This moment also marked a turning point in modern warfare. Ukraine demonstrated how relatively low-cost technology could challenge even the most powerful states. Drones, cyber capabilities, and precise intelligence coordination leveled the playing field. The message to the world was unmistakable. No capital is completely safe anymore. As weeks passed, the impact of the strikes continued to ripple. Moscow saw increased checkpoints, restricted airspace, and heightened surveillance. Life went on, but with a sense of unease. The confidence that once defined the city was replaced by quiet tension. People listened more closely to the news. They looked up when they heard aircraft. They whispered more. For Ukraine, the strikes were both a success and a burden. Success because they demonstrated capability and resilience. A burden because they increased expectations and risk. Every move had to be calculated carefully. Push too hard and the conflict could spiral. Push too little and momentum would be lost. The world watched as Putin faced one of the greatest challenges of his rule. Not an opposition leader, not an election, but a war he started, now knocking on his own door. The image of the untouchable leader began to fade. Power that relies on myth is fragile when reality intervenes. History is filled with moments when symbols collapse before structures do. The fall of Moscow's perceived invulnerability may be remembered as one such moment. Not the end of the war, not the fall of a regime, but the instant when certainty vanished. What happens next remains uncertain. Russia still holds immense power, resources, and influence. Ukraine still faces enormous challenges and sacrifices. But one thing has changed permanently. The war is no longer confined by borders or assumptions. It has entered a new phase where perception matters as much as firepower. The untouchable has been touched, and in the world of geopolitics, that alone can change everything